This is Alex here, and in studio with me, my special guest, Margaret Christensen. Margaret, you're no stranger to a radio station. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Alex. Thank you very much for
Now,
asking
Margaret,
me.
you've had a long time experience with radio and doing many radio serials and shows.
Thousands upon thousands.
Margaret, perhaps we can start at the beginning, and you'd like to tell our listeners, where were you born?
I was born in Adelaide, I'm not saying when, but I left there when I was 3. My father got a job in Sydney, and so he and my mother came over to Sydney with my brother, Chris Christensen.
Chris Christensen?
Yes, and me. And I grew up in Sydney. I was trained as an actress in Sydney.
Right. Was there a specific school you went to there, or...?
Well, my parents, I went to school when I was 3, because my parents couldn't keep me off the streets, they said. That's nice, isn't it?
Yes.
Anyway, they sent me to a little school, and then they moved, and I was sent to the local convent, where a young teacher of speech and drama was just starting out.
Ah.
And she came to my mother and she said, "Mrs. Christensen, I was wondering if I could have Peggy," they call me Peg, not Margaret, "as a private pupil. She's as clever as paint." I'd never heard that. My mother had never heard that expression. Anyway, I was with Doris Patterson, she was then, and she married and became Doris Freer, but I was with her until I was 20, doing all my Trinity College exams and all that sort of thing.
Right. Were your folks in the business at all?
Yes, my mother was a pianist, professional pianist.
Oh, yes.
And my father was an actor.
Well, it does run in the family then.
Well, sort of, yes.
Because there's another generation, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Indeed. Now, how did you break into the world of radio?
Well, I tell you, I could hear what was going on in Sydney, in radio, lots of plays and things, and I thought, gee, I've really been trained for this. I've got to get some experience. So I thought, I'll go to Brisbane.
Right.
And I went up to Brisbane and auditioned for the manager of 4BH, who was then Charles Carson, and he gave me my own show, The Bachelor Girl.
Right.
And also I went to the ABC and auditioned there, and I used to do plays up there for the ABC.
That's fascinating.
So that was my radio experience. Also, Charlie Carson's gave my brother, Chris, his first job there.
Right.
Chris came up to Brisbane, and Chris and I used to do a show at 7:30 in the morning, live to air, called Tuneful Tonics, in which Chris played the zither and sang, and we used to take a piece of news from the newspaper and sing about it, write verses and little songs, and we used to, it was quite a difficult program.
It's a lot of work for a live-to-air program at 7:30.
Is it ever?
Yeah, so you would have had to be an early riser.
Very, very early, yes.
Did you start... were you doing any stage work as well as the radio at that time?
Not at that time, no. But what happened, I met my husband up there, who was quite a celebrated orchestra leader, violinist, Dan Scully, and we had a little daughter. And then Dan joined the Air Force. The Second World War broke out. Dan joined the Air Force and was posted to Sydney, so my mother and the baby and I came down to Sydney.
Right.
And that's when I broke into Sydney radio.
Right, right. Was it hard to get into? I often wonder whether these things are...
There was a lot of work being done here, tremendous amount. And I went and auditioned for the Howells, Therese Desmond and Ted Howell, Edward Howell, Fred and Maggie, everybody.
Fred and Maggie.
Well, they were doing some classical serials, and I went and auditioned for them on the Saturday morning, and I was in one of the shows on the next week.
Oh, really?
Yes, and also I went to the ABC and auditioned there for the father of the producer of the ABC plays in Brisbane, and I failed.
Oh.
So I marched into his office and I said, "Why did you fail me in the audition? I've been working for your son in Brisbane for a long time." Oh, he said, "Well, if you're good enough for him, you're good enough for me." And there I was in the ABC plays.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yes, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you're saying, well, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Well, no, it wasn't that. I think that he wasn't listening to the auditions. They had some of the office girls or something to do the auditions, you see.
Right,
yes.
yeah, well, that's hardly fair, is it?
Well, there you go.
Okay, now, when you started doing these radio serials, or the soapies, as some people would like to say, was it a hectic life?
Yes.
You'd be busy running from one studio to the other.
When I became established, after I had played the part of Josephine de Beauharnais, who married Napoleon, I was just so busy, as was everybody. It just burgeoned, and it was a huge industry. And the actors were running around all day, every day, from studio to studio, and doing the big plays on the weekend like Lux Radio Theatre or Caltex Radio Theatre.
Right.
And, of course, we used to have to dress up for those shows because they were done with an audience.
Yes. Would it be full evening wear?
Absolutely.
And the men had to have the old bow tie going?
Absolutely.
That's amazing. I mean, nowadays it's just... anything goes.
Oh well, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's interesting to know. So you could be fully employed and running around every day, 5 days a week, and perhaps more from studio to studio doing recordings.
Yes.
Amazing. Why don't we just have a little break and have a listen to you in a particular episode of Hagen's Circus.
Oh, all right.
And now you played Win in this.
Winnie. Oh, it's Winnie.
So we're going to have a listen to this. We'll play the opening and just gets into it. Then you come on and we can have a talk about Hagen's Circus after. All right. So let's go. Let's have a little listen to Hagen's Circus and Peg.
Hagen's Circus, the show of shows. Christine Hagen, eldest daughter of the Hagen family, has fallen deeply in love with Grant Andrews, Canadian trapeze star. When one of the tent hands is attacked by an escaped gorilla, Christine accuses her lover of doping the animal, but Andrews is able to prove his innocence. But the quarrel unnerves the star so much that he falls from the trapeze and, declaring his nerve has cracked, determines to leave the circus. He asks Christine to marry and leave with him. Christine begs for time to think over the proposal. On the morning that the circus breaks camp, Christine, going in a search of her brother Robin, overhears an extraordinary conversation between Robin and Winnie Nelson, flashy daughter of the head clown.
Oh, no, Winnie, don't run away.
Oh, Miss Chris.
I want to have a little talk with you, Winnie. Now, what's this about someone trying to wreck the circus? Well?
I don't know what you're talking about, Miss Chris.
Oh, what's the good, Winnie? Chris heard what you said.
But Robin...
I knew from the jump we couldn't keep this thing a secret. It'll have to come out sooner or later.
Then you know about too, Rob.
Yes, I know.
You realize how terribly serious this is.
Of course I do.
And yet you kept it to yourself?
Only because I wanted to spare the old man, Chris. Dad's got enough on his mind as it is. When Winnie told me, I said the best thing we could do was keep our mouths shut. Maybe it'd all blow over.
Winnie,
Yes?
so it was you who started this rumor.
I didn't start anything. It was Mum and Dad that started it. I heard them talking. A couple of mornings ago it was.
Yes?
They were talking all about the funny things that have been happening here in the circus. And my dad says it's just like what happened to that Colonel Penrose's outfit. That there was a special man put into that circus to wreck it so that Colonel Penrose would sell out.
Sell out?
Oh, Miss Chris, I wasn't trying to make any mischief. Honest, I wasn't. I just mentioned it casual-like to Robin, and he said I wasn't to breathe a word of it to a living soul. And I haven't. Crossed me heart, I haven't.
That's right, Chris. You see, my main concern was keeping it from Dad.
Have you told anyone else about it?
Well, Peg, how does that make you feel?
Well, I don't know.
It was a funny little voice.
It was a funny little voice. How did you develop that?
Oh, I don't know. I can do any voices. You know, I do a lot of voiceover work now.
Did the producer give you an indication this is how I want you to...
No. You just
just thought this is as you read the part. This is what I feel.
You flesh it out.
Was that a long, Winnie? Was that a long engagement?
As far as I remember, Alex, you know, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Paul Jacklin was the producer.
Right, right. And who was the announcer? You were mentioning the announcer.
That was Ronnie Roberts.
Ronnie Roberts, yes.
Husband of Hilda Skerr.
Well, there you go. I didn't realise that. But no, I love that piece of music. P.O. Prune is called.
Is
I
it?
played that recently, actually, in one of my programs.
Did you?
Yes, that piece of music from the recorded music library. So that was Hagen's Circus. Happy days, huh?
Happy days.
Yes, indeed. Now, speaking of being in the radio soaps and that, and working so hard, was there good money, or was there a specific time when the money became better?
Yes, a very specific time.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Was when we got Actors' Equity and a very militant secretary called Hal Alexander,
Right.
who was marvellous. And when the actors, you know, sometimes we used to have to go out to Homebush, where the EMI studios were at that time. And we'd go out there, you know, and perhaps get a cup of tea and 10 and sixpence for the 4 episodes or whatever we were doing, because we used to fly most of the stuff.
Right. Now,
particularly for George Edwards.
explain the fly, because...
Oh, yes. When you fly an episode, you go into a studio, you pick up a script which you haven't seen before, quickly mark it, and you record it straight away. You don't rehearse it.
Right.
That's called flying it.
Yep, good. And continue now.
Yep.
Sorry, I interrupted.
That's all right. Yeah, where was I?
You were talking about how...
Oh, yes, yes.
When
We
you
used
went
to...
out and you got 10 and 6.
10 and sixpence for, say, 4 or 6 episodes a morning, you see. And, 10 and 6 was a lot more in those days
that's right.
than it eventually became. But Alexander got in, he thought, this is no good. This is no good. The actors must get £1 per episode, which went from 10 and sixpence for 6 episodes to £6, including a tea break, which was very, very nice. No, he was great.
That's great.
Yes.
Well, at least he went in to bat for you and got some...
Oh, he did.
Was there much opposition from the producers? I mean, you know, from the Grace Gibsons and the Australasians?
I don't remember that Grace Gibson was quite established as a production company at that time.
She might not have been there, no.
No, but the George Edwards people, they were going hot and strong, and they used to do all their stuff, like Dad and Dave, and what was the corner?
Martin's Corner?
Martin's Corner?
Yeah.
Yes, they were all done at EMI at Homebush.
Now, did you have a favourite program or serial that you worked in? Was there something that you really enjoyed doing and you got your teeth into it, sort of thing?
Oh, yes, I used to enjoy most of the stuff that I did. I mean, if you're not enjoying it, you
wouldn't do it.
You don't do it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed doing Josephine, of course.
Yeah.
That was the first big show that I did, you know.
Tell us a little bit about that, Josephine, Empress of Sorrows.
Yes, Josephine, Empress of Sorrows was a serial written by a New Zealand writer, F.W. Kenyon.
Right.
And E. Mason Wood was the producer.
Woody.
Yeah, Woody. And he called me in to do an audition. He said, this was my first big show, and I wanted to get it so badly, you know. I was young and ambitious. And they were going to do this serial, and I picked up a script and thought, oh, this is for me. So Woody called me and he said, now, I heard you in a show the other night. My son, you played an Irish girl. He said it was a very good performance. He said, now, I want you to get this. And boy, did I want to get it. Because all the great radio actresses of that period were auditioning for it, and they all wanted it. Anyway, I got it.
Wonderful.
And I had John Alden playing Napoleon, because it was a story of Josephine de Beauharnais, who eventually married Napoleon Bonaparte.
Right.
And she came to Paris to live, and she was quite a girl, believe me. But yes, it was a great serial, but it established me as an actress.
And Woody was a wonderful man to work for, I understand.
Yes, he was. Woody was English. He'd come out here some years before with a show from England, and he stayed. And he He was, he used to produce by osmosis. It was a very mental thing with Woody. You could never take an inflection from him. But you knew exactly what he wanted because it was such a mental thing between the producer and the actor.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, but he was great.
Well, that's fascinating because I haven't met an actor that's actually worked with Woody. But,
I worked with him through many shows.
but I know he did a lot of the Celtics. We've in the past
yes.
we've run some Celtics theatre here on Golden Days,
It's a wonder you've got any.
and quite often he'll be mentioned. He and Chris Jenkinson.
Now, Chris Jenkinson, I was telling Sean, Chris Jenkinson produced me in a Celtics radio theatre called The Rainmaker.
Right.
And when I had decided to go to England, they hadn't moved down to Sussex Street from 2GB. And I was in there one day, and Chris and I were going along the shelves and shelves and shelves of all these big black discs that we used to record on.
Transcriptions.
Yes, and he took this one out that he had produced me in, which was The Rainmaker, and he said, "Here, take this with you." Well, that, I thought, was about the only Celtics theatre disc that was left. I sent it to the archives in Canberra.
In Canberra, yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
On condition that they let me have a tape of it. Which I've got.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, we should run it here at Golden Days sometime. All right. Now, the next thing I want to touch on is Life with Dexter. Now, I know this was everyone wants to talk to you. Everyone wants to talk to you about, but I've got a grab, and I'd like to play that, and then perhaps we can come back and talk a little bit about Willie Fennell, and because it was such a part of Australian life.
Oh, I know.
And let's have a listen to this now and bring back some memories. And this episode, I know you're in because it's before episode number 80.
Right.
Here we go.
The Commonwealth Savings Bank of Australia, the bank for all the family, takes pleasure in presenting the show for all the family, Life with Dexter.
If money can buy it, saving will get it, so bank Commonwealth now.
For a car or a bike or just a rainy day,
Be sure to save the friendly Commonwealth way.
so listen to this advice and start right today.
To bank Commonwealth, save Commonwealth Bank, Commonwealth now.
I'm afraid I've been rather amiss of late because I haven't introduced you to the new member of the Dutton family, namely Lightning. Lightning is a dog, or rather we think he's a dog, on account of he slightly resembles one. Young Ashley and Lightning became acquainted on the footpath one Saturday morning when Ashley was on his way home with the shopping.
Now look, fella, I've told you 6 times. It's no good following me home. You don't belong to me. Look, will you be a good boy and shoo off? Look, I might look like your master, but I'm not. Anyhow, I couldn't look like your master, because my dad says there couldn't be 2 like me in the world. Oh, go on, fella. Be a good dog and scram. Now, look, you heard me. Now, scram. Go on. Hey, not on the road. Stay on the footpath. You'll get... Oh, come here. Oh, gee, fella, you nearly got bowled over. Oh, poor old boy. Don't you know you have to look both ways before crossing the road? Yeah, when you do cross, stay between the yellow lines. Here, let's see if you've got a name and address on your collar. No collar. Oh, that means... Maybe it means you don't belong to anybody. Ah, you don't, eh? Well, that sure sounded like that's right to me. What's wrong now? You hungry? Yeah, well, look, I've got 2 pounds of sausages here, and the butcher gave me 1 over for good measure, so, well, I reckon it might be okay if I gave you 1. Now, don't be impatient. Now, there. Eat it slowly. I said slowly, you'll get indigestion. Well, I gotta be getting home now. So long, fella. Listen, you'd better not follow me home. I said, don't follow me home. All right. I guess if you follow me home, you follow me home. But, well, no one can say I asked you to.
Jessie, I'm getting peckish. What's for lunch?
Plain, ordinary sausages. But I can't start cooking them till Ashley brings them home. Oh, dear, that boy's always so slow.
Not always, dear. When he saw me cleaning out the garage last Saturday, I noticed him disappear like he was trying to break the sound barrier.
I believe I hear my sweet little brother coming round the side now. And he's talking to himself.
Oh, he must have someone with him. Ashley doesn't talk to himself.
If he did, he'd never be able to answer his own questions.
Hi, I'm home.
And about time, too.
Oh,
whatever's that?
What is that?
Dad, you'll hurt his feelings. You mustn't say, what is that? You should say, who is he?
Well, never mind who he is. Get it out of here.
Oh, Mom.
Is it animal, vegetable, or mineral?
Where did you get him, her, or it?
He's a he, and he's a poor, lonely fellow with no collar, no home, and no master. He's practically dying of starvation.
Him and me both. Look, you'll have to get rid of him, son. We're not going to be saddled with a dog again.
Definitely not. You've had 2 dogs in the past and been unlucky with both of them. No more, thank you.
No.
Oh, Mom, please, let's discuss it rationalistically.